everyone. Joseph Onesta, type 2 mentor here. I'm not a doctor. You're not going to get medical advice from me, but I do have some good information for you, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. We're in part 3 of our series on the hijacking of your taste buds. This is a critical problem, mostly because, you have to eat. Really, you can't avoid food. And of course, we're always attracted, aren't we, to the most convenient and the tastiest food. Not that you should have to eat all sorts of foods that you don't like, but the idea that food has to be tasty and explode in your mouth is just a different, it's not true, actually. So you're probably hearing a lot about ultra processed foods these days because these foods are literally manufactured for that explode in your mouth feeling, that taste, that what you really, really want. And they are actually engineered to get you to eat more. They usually are not nutritionally packed. Generally, they have additives like they'll say fortified, but they don't really satisfy, so you're always hungry. Another reason to eat a little bit more. And they generally have this thing called the bliss point, which is the balance of fat, sugar, and salt that just makes you happy, but not for long, honestly. You might be happy while you're eating it. In fact, a lot of people eat so unconsciously that they're not even happy while they're eating it. They just think they're happy. Something there. Anyway, so you're probably hearing a lot about these ultra processed foods, and I thought I would take a few minutes just to talk to you about exactly what they are. Now, let's get serious about this. Maybe 2 years ago, I was sitting with a group of people. We were in a coffee shop. I was sharing some information that I had found about processed foods, and we were actually started talking about processed oils, which is part of this discussion. Things that we call them seed oils, things like vegetable oil, corn oil, soybean oil, things that you can't just normally just squeeze and get oil out. You can't. So they have to chemically process them. And because the process is hidden from us, the chances are that they weren't healthy. In fact, that has borne out that these seed oils are perhaps doing as much harm as they are good, if not more harm, and that is to the microbiome. But anyway, we were talking about these seed oils and food processing, and my one friend said to me, look, you walk into the grocery store and literally everything is processed. And he's kind of right. There are a couple of processes that just have to happen before you get to the store. So today I want to distinguish between minimally processed food, and ultra processed food. And what we really want to do in terms of reestablishing a healthy relationship with our taste buds, with food, with our bodies, we want to start cutting on the ultra processed and cutting back so that what we end up with is as real food as we can possibly eat, and discover in our bodies this great relationship where what I eat right now doesn't only make me feel good right now, it helps me feel good all the time. Okay, so let's start with minimally processed food. You're walking through a field of wheat, this beautiful flowing field of wheat. Just imagine it. You grab a head of wheat, the sheaf of wheat, and and I know a lot of people can't even imagine this, but you put it in your mouth and you start noshing on it The truth is that's unprocessed. You did nothing to it other than pick it and eat it. And if we were all foragers, we wouldn't be talking about processed food. But you picked it and ate it. So somebody along history got the idea that we're going to take this wheat and we're going to grow it so that it gets bigger so that we have more, and we're going to grind it up. And usually that happened between two stones. So you had kind of grit in your flour. And then they would mix that flour with water and, I don't know, other things that they had available. It wouldn't have really have been salt because salt was kind of dear at the time, but they would mix it and, make bread and things like that. All right. So when you grind it up, as long as you don't do anything else to it but grind it up, that's minimally processed, right? It is processed, but it's minimally processed. It's ground up. Now, the digestion of eating the wheat while you're walking through the field and the ground up flour, which you mix with water and cook, is completely different. You're gonna the starch is more readily available, so it increases blood sugar. I'm the type 2 mentor. I really want you to know about that. Not that everybody has a wheat field in their backyard to go out and nosh on a sheaf of, a frond of wheat. But anyway, so that's processed as long as they don't do anything to it. And then when you go, if they start, they're going to bleach it, they're going to pull out all the fiber, all of the wheat germ there, and what's left is the starch. That's still processed, but it's more processed than the whole wheat. Okay, but it's still processed. I don't know that I would call it ultra processed yet. Here's what we want to do. We want to think about the ingredient label on the food. So we pick up a spongy loaf of bread because we're going to make grilled cheese or something. We're gonna eat these sandwiches, and we didn't go to the bakery. We got it out of a plastic bag on the bread shelf and we look at the ingredients labels. And all of a sudden, we're going to notice that there are things in there that if we had made the bread at home out of minimally processed or processed flour, we're going to see things in there that are designed, literally chemical concoctions that are designed to extend the shelf life of that product and make it hyper palatable. So, and usually, of course, that means sugar, salt, and fat. So here's the thing. If you go to a bakery and you buy a loaf of bread or you make bread, these are the ingredients that should be in a loaf of bread: flour, salt, water. You might extend that to a little bit of fat, depending. But that's what's supposed to be in bread. Everything else on the label, literally everything else, sugar. I'm sorry. I forgot yeast. All right, yeast. Can't believe I forgot yeast. But literally everything else on that list is extra or designed for a purpose. So the sugar, the sweetener, whatever it is designed to make it more palatable. The fat would make it more palatable. The little bit of salt makes it a little bit more palatable. All of these things are in there. But when you go to that bread that would stay on your counter for a week while you peel away at it, there's something going on there. Okay, so the trick to this is I'm going to read labels. I'm going to read labels and look at the thing. So back to that discussion about literally everything is processed in the grocery store. Yeah, and you need to know about that too. So when you buy your meat, for example, in the meat section, a lot of times that meat has been injected. It'll tell you on the label they put water in it or stock or something into the meat to make it weigh more. That's processing. We don't know what was in the stock. It's also been likely mechanically tenderized, which means they put it through a kind of machine that put a whole bunch of needles into it to tenderize the meat. This is why it's recommended that you cook your meat thoroughly, because all of the bacteria on the outside of the meat has now been pushed in with those needles. So you have bacteria that may or may not be okay for you pushed deep into the meat. That's why they say make it well done. All right. Well, what about vegetables, Joseph? Well, a lot of them have been sprayed. What's that waxy thing on the outside of a cucumber? What is that? Like if you grow a cucumber in your garden, it doesn't have that. Now, you could wash it off, you could peel the cucumber, but it's been sprayed maybe with pesticides, herbicides, all sorts of things that there is no label on a cucumber. So you don't know. And just throw in there the genetically modified stuff, that freaks people out. And sometimes legitimately, right? Because GMO corn literally has the pesticide built in, which means you're eating pesticide, even if, no matter how much you wash it, because it's genetically in there. So these are things that you need to know about. But our primary concern is the ultra processed food. And ultra processed food contains things, like I said, are designed to improve the shelf life or to do something else that makes it last longer. Like when you buy a jar of or a bottle of salad dressing, okay, first of all, look, sugar, salt, and sugar has like 100 million names, dextrose, maltodextrin, literally lots of names of sugar, ways of getting it in there so that it tickles your brain and you think, oh, this is good. This is really good. But they also add a thing called emulsifiers, which stop it from separating. If you put oil, vinegar, salt, and pepper, and literally that's how my mom used to fix a salad, but she did it all separately. She would sprinkle on the vinegar and she would sprinkle on the oil and salt and pepper, and she'd be tasting. And her salads were amazing. She was famous for her salads. They were amazing. She was really good. But that's her dressing. But if you put all of those ingredients in a jar or in a bottle and put it in your refrigerator, first of all, because it was extra virgin olive oil, it might actually solidify in the refrigerator. But you would also notice that it's separated, that the oil would be on top and the vinegar would be on the bottom. You'd have to shake it up, shake it up, shake it up, and then put it on your salad. And so later, when I grew up, I cheated, right? I didn't make it every time. I love salad and I love my mom's salad, but I cheated. And it would separate and I'd have to shake it up. And, you know, that's an emulsifier. And then they put other things in there that are just crazy. Like, why is it even in there? You know, I was looking at a label with a client the other day. My clients literally take pictures of their plates of food. We talk about them, no food journals. We're just looking at the food. And if something came out of a box, a bag, or a package, they have to take a picture of the nutrition label and the ingredients, because we have to talk about these things. And there were things listed on these labels that were inexplicable. Like, and the easiest one to understand is modified potato starch. How did they modify it? You know, when you boil potatoes, say you're going to make some mashed potatoes, and you boil the potatoes, And at the bottom of the pot, there's this sort of white film as you pull the potatoes out and drain the water. There's this white film. That's potato starch. Most of us throw that away. What did they do with it? How did they modify it? How did they modify it? This is something they would have thrown away. They figured out how to make a cheap ingredient out of it, save it from going into the landfill, I suppose, but make a cheap ingredient and get you to eat it. That's it. And it fills up. It's cheap filler. It's cheap filler. But I don't, okay, so maybe it thickened this or it did that. But what are these chemicals? Why do we have to have them? Sometimes lemon, you can't even pronounce the words. And it's like, wow, what is that? And here we are as a people going to the grocery store, spending hard-earned cash on, unless you found a secret to not hardly earn it, but hard-earned cash on food, air quotes around the word food, because it's not really food, it's some sort of chemistry experiment. And you're paying for it and you're eating things you don't even know what it is. You don't even know what it is. That's ultra-processed food. And, I want my taste buds back. I want my taste buds back. And I want my health back. So join me on this journey of reclaiming our health and walking into the supermarket, looking at labels and seeing what's in there. I mean, there are some deal breakers for me. For me, soybean oil is a deal breaker. If I see soybean oil, and the soybean people are going to be really pissed off at me for saying this, but if I see soybean oil, what I see is GMO, chemical processing, cheap, inexpensive, because they want to make money, right? The food industry buys this cheap oil, puts it in there because it's fat, buys this cheap oil because it's cheap and they can get more bang for their buck. Right back on the show. What are your deal breakers? If you have deal breakers when you see on a label, if you read actually, go ahead and tell me, do you read labels? Or maybe you should start. Joseph Onesta, type 2 mentor here. Feel free to reach out to me. I look forward to talking to you. Like, subscribe. I'm supposed to say that. It helps get the word out. That's true. So let's do this together. Let's get our taste buds back.